Right, good evening, and thanks for clicking on to the Tuesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. It is the 3rd of December, and we have got plenty of weather going on at the moment. So now is the time to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. We have got a lot of weather to speak about. We've got a powering up of the jet stream. Thanks to Arctic air descending south over eastern North America, we are expecting a jet, according to the GFS model, in excess of 250 miles per hour, roaring across the Atlantic. What that's going to do is it's going to send a series of systems across the UK and Ireland. And what may happen is, as we move towards the weekend, we could have a particularly deep area of low pressure in its deepening phase as it moves across Ireland and the UK. So is there a possibility we could see a named storm as we move into the early portions of the weekend? Well, that remains to be seen. But this is the latest satellite loop as the sun sets this evening. We've got one frontal system of a series moving across the country. That is bringing a mix of rain, sleet and snow. If we look at the latest off the radar, you can actually see some heavy snowfall that has been pushing across Scotland through the course of today. Initially over the West Highlands, that is now drifting into the Central and East Highlands, and you can start to see slightly milder air transitioning that precipitation back over to rain once again. Even here at Marfogan Weather HQ, not that far above sea level, we're seeing a light covering of snow through this afternoon. But temperatures this morning were fairly chilly, down into the mid single figures below freezing. We had -5s, -6s in a few spots. A little less cold the further south you went across the UK, where we're holding up at 4s and 5s across the far south of England, and also Ireland, slightly milder. But across the Dublin area, we had temperatures down close to -5 this morning, so a fairly chilly one down here. And looking at the Highland Weather Network, it was a chilly one as well. I think we've seen locally -8 in parts of the Central Highlands. So if we zoom in on this chart, these were the lows this morning. Plenty of -5s, -6s, -7s, and I think Lee, there's a -8 there at Arlagee estate in Strathdon. Had a minimum temperature of -8.3 Celsius. And I think in and around the Car Bridge area we're close to that also. But looking at the current temperatures according to the network, so these are the current readings. We had a few places once again failing to get above the freezing mark. We may see a slight rise over the next couple of hours before that frontal system clears out. We'll start to see clear skies and light winds once again. The temperatures are going to drop quickly once that front moves through, and therefore all that moisture on the ground is going to freeze pretty quickly. So therefore we've got probably quite a significant ice risk during the overnight period tonight. So these are the current temperatures according to the Meteoseal site, and we are hovering at or just above or below the freezing mark, slightly milder through the central belt and further south across both Ireland and the UK. We'll have 2 to 5 Celsius across Northern Ireland, but as mild as 11 Celsius at Valencia and 10.7 at Sherkin Island on the south coast of Ireland. We've also got 7s, 8s and 9s down across the far south of the British side, slightly milder here. But that frontal system will move through. We are going to see a rise in the temperature. There's another little slight lull between the fronts that is going to provide the chillier nights. But generally speaking, this frontal system moves through. It cools in the wake of that front, but then there's slightly milder air moving in during the course of tomorrow, and we will see a steady rise in temperature over the next couple of days. But that jet stream, like I say, thanks to bitterly cold air that is dropping south over the United States, that is increasing the thermal gradient. This has been highlighted since the back half of November, with that rotation through phases 3 into 4 into 5 of the MJO. This is the pattern I expected to see, so it's playing out quite nicely. This, by the way, is the first 3 days of the month for the United States, so bitterly cold air driving southwards from southern Alberta, Saskatchewan, right the way down into the southeast United States, We've obviously seen as much as 65 inches of snow over a 4 or 5 days period downstream of Lake Ontario in upstate New York. So incredible snow amounts to the east of the Great Lakes. But we're also seeing bitterly cold conditions. By the way, this is Europe to the first 3 days. Look at the bitterly cold air that is waiting in the wings to descend south. That is going to move south, by the way, in the wake of the system on Saturday. It looks as if it's turning considerably colder during the course of next week. But ahead of it, we've seen fairly mild conditions across the majority of the UK as well as Ireland through the first 7 days of first 3 days, of the month. But looking at the GFS, you can see here upcoming 5 days still showing slightly cooler across Scotland. The majority of England and Wales is slightly warmer than average. This is the period now taking us out to the 6th of December. But then the 6 to 10 day, notably colder, especially further south actually over France and Spain and Portugal. We've got a fairly chilly looking 6 to 10 day period. But there is other rumblings in the model as well, suggesting that next week and beyond is turning colder and colder. If we look at the latest of the ECMWF, this is for the MJO, and you can see the rotation continuing to push through the warm phases at the moment, even though we're not particularly warm. This is quite an interesting change in the overall evolution. Every time we've seen this rotation through phases 3, 4, and 5, it's been considerably milder across Western Europe. But we are starting to see slight adjustments in that thinking. You have to factor in some of the teleconnections and also the linkage between the very weak La Nina or La Nada that we've got at the moment. So that's neither an El Nino or a La Nina, and other factors as well. These phases, by the way, do slightly alter in their outcome depending on a El Nino, La Nina, or a La Nada. And it's certainly interesting as we move into phases 4, 5, but particularly into phases 6 and 7, there's actually more of a cold signal than what we've seen back in September with the phase 6. Phase 6 tends to have a different kind of solution once you progress into the early portions of the winter season compared to what we've seen back during the early autumn season. So this is certainly something that needs to be taken into consideration. But you can see that the MJO is rotating through the mild phases at the moment. This is an interesting one. A long way out, 384 hours, but this is the 10 millibar temperature profile over the Arctic region. And one standout thing to point out is that warm blob over Eastern Asia. Is that something developing as we move towards the latter half of December? That would certainly have a consequence later down the road if this had any kind of merit, for one, but also is this a hint or an indicator of a major southern stratospheric warming starting to evolve? Is the model starting to see this? Now, the reason that what I would ask, the question would be, is what's this meaning? Why are we seeing this strong warming? Is it because we're going to start to see the MJO rotate into the cold phases and a consequential negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation? That then puts pressure on the lower stratosphere by building heights over the Arctic region up into the stratosphere, creates that drag within the circulation of the 50 to 10 millibar level of the stratosphere. And then that consequently could start to create a wave break within the stratosphere, causing the warming to take place. It may be nothing, but it also may be something as well. So we're going to watch this. Long way out, like I say, but it's certainly something worth keeping a very close eye on. But until we get there, we have got a series of wet and windy systems moving across the Atlantic. That's going to bring an impact to Ireland and the UK through the remainder of this working week. But it's all eyes on a system that may form on the warm side of a very powerful jet stream, cross over into the cold side, and may rapidly deepen as it crosses over Ireland and the UK. There's still a long way out yet. We're only on Tuesday. But nonetheless, it could be something to keep a close eye on as we move towards the Saturday time frame. I know the BBC and the Met Office are already starting to kind of make mention of this feature coming in during the course of Saturday. But that jet stream, certainly according to the GFS model, that jet is projected to power up to 220 knots. 220 knots, by the way, is 253 miles per hour. And that certainly is a source region for the development and deepening of low pressure. And it's going to be an interesting one as we go through the next few days. Looking at the GFS model, this is the overview, and you can see that we have got one system moving through. This is 21 UTC tomorrow, Wednesday, 968 millibar low moving up towards Iceland. Its consequential trailing front is going to then bring a spell of wind, rain, hill snow, and also a squeeze in the isobars, meaning we're going to see stronger winds developing with this feature. But it's the features that are out over the open Atlantic. Looks rather innocuous at the moment, but as we play through this loop, there's the next system moving through Thursday, 15 UTC. Again, wind, rain will be the consequence of that. And then as this feature running the southern side of the jet, it looks as if it looks rather innocuous, if you notice, but it does deepen during the latter half of Friday and into Saturday. And then once that feature moves through, a lot of uncertainty with regards to the depth, the track, how far north, how far south it goes, all open to question at this moment in time. But it's once that feature moves east, we then see a northwesterly flow, because that high is now repositioned to the west, extending up towards Greenland, and therefore you've got a run of northerly flow. We're back in the Arctic air once again during the course of Saturday here, and then we've got features running south over the UK from the north. So what else can we look at here? Looking at the snow projections according to the GFS. So this is total snow cover, by the way. Again, this is the total accumulated snow. As we progress through the next 24 hours, you can see here that we've got the snow developing southern uplands up through the highlands, as can be seen. That will probably return to rain as slightly milder air moves in. Then once that feature completely clears out, the sky's clear, temperatures drop very quickly, ice risk widespread. Play through this loop. You notice here by the time we reach the weekend, we're increasing snow across northern England, Ireland and Northern Ireland as well. And then that increases further, especially across mainland Europe. Notice here, central into France, into Iberia, we're increasing snow cover across more central and southwestern areas of the continent as we progress through the course of next week. If we look at the 850 temperatures here of the GFS model and see what they're showing, so we'll hone in on the storm prospect towards the end of the week, probably in tomorrow's video, because there's still a lot of uncertainty, like I keep saying, with regards to the model. So there's that milder air mixing in, as can be seen here during the course of Thursday. But notice here that we are flirting with that cold. There's that feature running along that boundary between Arctic air and subtropical air. That then clears out of the way and then opens the door to some pretty cold air dropping south over the British Isles. But it's once we get towards the early and middle portions of next week, this is when things become quite uncertain but interesting. That area of high pressure to the west of the UK and Ireland tries to start drifting towards Scandinavia, and as it does so, it's pulling cold air out of Central Europe westwards underneath the high, and that could create a different solution altogether here. But it's certainly going to be an interesting one. Do we start to see an easterly flow developing here? You can see off the GFS model there is still a lot of back and forth. I'm being a little bit hesitant in buying into this solution that all of a sudden we get this easterly flow and we're in the freezer for a long period of time. We're still in the warm phases of the MJO. We've still got a fairly strong polar vortex, but I think it's as we move towards the middle portions of this month, things get more interesting. MJO becomes more favourable for cold. The stratosphere starts to become disrupted. What's the reasons for that? I think it's likely because we're going to increase the blocking within the high latitudes once again, and as I've already explained, creates the frictional effects on the stratospheric circulation. But there is so many things going on, and that is why I encourage you to stick around. If you're enjoying this, content here in Marfogan Weather 7 days a week. And yeah, let's stay tuned and see how things progress over the next few days. Stay safe and well. See you tomorrow with more. Bye for now.